All right, let's jump into something that should matter to, well, pretty much everyone. I mean, who doesn't like a warm house, right?
Right.
We're talking gas safety.
Oh, yeah, gas safety. Super important.
And, you asked for a deeper look at the requirements, especially for landlords in the UK. So we've gone and gathered info from the Gas Safe Register, the HSE, some advice sites for landlords, and even British Gas, just to cover all the bases.
Sounds comprehensive.
Should be. So let's get started. I think a lot of people, me included, are sometimes a little fuzzy on what exactly a gas safety certificate IS, or a CP12, which I guess is another name for it.
CP12, gas safety certificate, it's all the same.
Okay, but what's it really telling us? It sounds official, sure.
Think of it like a health check, but for your gas appliances.
Ah, okay.
So here in the UK, it's a legal document, and it proves that an engineer, and not just any engineer, but a gas-safe registered engineer,
Hmm.
has checked all the gas appliances and, confirmed they're working safely and efficiently.
So we're talking about boilers and cookers and fireplaces, anything that uses gas.
Exactly, all of that.
So it's not just about making sure the flame lights up, right? There's
Like
got to be more to it.
Right. You've got to think about where those fumes are going. I was reading on one of those landlord advice sites, there was something about flues.
Flues.
Yeah, those pipes that vent out the exhaust? They said sometimes they can be hidden away, like in walls or ceilings.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought of that.
Right. And if you can't even get to them, how can you check if they're blocked or damaged? Could be dangerous.
That's a really good point. So I bet that's where this whole at-risk classification comes in then, right?
Exactly. Since 2013, engineers have been required to mark a boiler as at risk if they can't fully check out the flue.
So what does that mean? What happens then?
It basically means don't use the boiler until you fix it, until you give the engineer proper access. It's common sense, really. Those gases need a clear way to get out, otherwise they can build up inside, and that's a serious risk.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So who needs this gas safety certificate?
Well, legally, it's a must for landlords.
Okay, yeah.
They're required to get a gas safety certificate every year for every single gas appliance in their rental property.
Wow, every year.
Every year.
That's a lot.
It's about tenant safety, and it's the law.
Yeah, that makes sense. You wouldn't want to mess around with gas safety.
Definitely not.
So what actually happens during one of these checks?
Well, a qualified gas safe engineer, they'll come to the property and they inspect each appliance.
All right.
They look at the appliance settings, make sure it's burning cleanly, efficiently with the right gas pressure, kind of like when you get your car serviced to make sure everything's running smoothly.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
Then they'll check that all those harmful gases, like carbon monoxide, they're being vented outside properly.
So it's not just about the appliance itself, but the whole system working together.
You got it. They'll look at the ventilation too, making sure the air vents are clear and working right. And then they'll check all the safety devices on each appliance to make sure they're in good working order.
What kind of safety devices are we talking about here?
Things that can shut off the gas supply if something goes wrong, really crucial stuff to prevent accidents.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's super important.
Definitely.
It's amazing how many different things they check. So this is all for the appliances, right?
Yeah.
But what about the pipes, the ones that connect everything?
Good question. That's often overlooked. While the annual check doesn't specifically include the pipe work, it's really a good idea for landlords to have that check too.
Oh, okay.
A gas-safe engineer can test them for tightness, look for any signs of damage, corrosion, give everything a good visual once over.
So it's like an extra precaution, like getting your car serviced regularly, even if it seems to be running fine.
Exactly. Preventative maintenance, right?
Right. So we've talked about the certificate itself and the checks. But I remember seeing something on the Gas Safe Register website about gas safety records, too. What are those about?
Think of it like a detailed logbook of all the checks, listing the appliances, the flues that were inspected, the engineer's details, date of the check, the address, the landlord's info, and any safety defects they found.
So landlords definitely need to keep those on file, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's actually a legal requirement.
Oh,
And it just helps to track the history of maintenance, too. Shows that they've been doing their due diligence for safety.
makes sense. What about tenants? Should they be asking about these?
100%. Tenants should always get a copy of that gas safety record from their landlord. It's about peace of mind, knowing that their home is safe and that the landlord is taking those necessary steps.
So transparency is key. It's a shared responsibility when it comes to gas safety, right?
Absolutely. Working together to create a safe environment for everyone. While we're talking about all of this, it makes you wonder, what happens if a landlord forgets to schedule a check and their gas safety certificate expires.
Well, yeah, is there like a grace period?
Well, you're not totally out of luck if that expiry date is like right around the corner.
Okay.
You can actually book a new check anytime within the 10 to 12 months leading up to when your current certificate expires.
Oh, okay.
And the new certificate, it'll kick in right when the old one runs out, so you're covered without any gaps.
So no grace period exactly, but you've got like a window to work with.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about carbon monoxide.
Oh, yeah.
It's invisible, it's odorless, it's super dangerous, especially when we're talking about gas appliances. So how does a gas safety check help protect against that silent threat?
Well, it's a major focus of the check.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about the engineer making sure those appliances are burning correctly and that those exhaust gases are vented out properly?
Right?
Well, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
If combustion isn't happening efficiently, carbon monoxide can build up instead of being safely, expelled.
Ah, okay.
And the engineer, they're also going to be looking for any signs of CO leaks, which can be tricky to detect without the right equipment.
Yeah, I was reading the British Gas actually mentions that their engineers will specifically check for carbon monoxide leaks as part of their gas safety service.
Yeah, absolutely. It's become like a standard part of the process.
Which is good.
Very reassuring.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like landlords are pretty much covered if they're getting those regular checks, but what about for homeowners?
Well, having a working carbon monoxide alarm, that's non-negotiable whether you're a landlord or a homeowner.
Right.
It's that extra layer of protection, and it can literally be a lifesaver.
Yeah.
They're not expensive. They're easy to find. Think of it as cheap insurance against a very serious risk.
Totally agree. You can never be too careful with that stuff. So let's say a landlord has done everything by the book. They've got the gas safety certificate, their records are all in order. They've even gone the extra mile and had that pipework checked. Is there anything else they should be thinking about to really nail gas safety?
One thing that often gets overlooked is communication.
Communicate.
Yeah, landlords talking to their tenants, making sure the tenants know how to safely use the gas appliances, what to do if they suspect a problem, who to contact for help.
Well, that's a really good point. It's not just about having the paperwork. It's about creating a culture of safety.
Exactly. Open communication is key.
Yeah.
A landlord should encourage their tenants to report any concerns right away, no matter how small they might seem.
Right.
It's always better to be safe than sorry, and having those lines of communication open can really prevent a minor issue from becoming like a major headache later on.
It's like having a fire drill.
Yeah.
Yeah. You might not ever need to use it, but if you do, everyone knows what to do and who to call.
Yeah.
And speaking of knowing what to do, wouldn't those gas safety records be useful for tenants too?
For sure. Tenants should be aware of those records, know where to find them, understand the information that's in them.
Right.
It builds trust transparency. It empowers tenants to be active participants in ensuring their own safety.
Okay, so let's say someone's listening to this and they're thinking, being a landlord sounds like a lot of responsibility, especially with all this gas safety stuff. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about becoming a landlord?
Do your research.
Yeah.
Dive deep into the legal requirements and best practices right from the start. Don't wait till you've got tenants moving in to start thinking about gas safety. It's a crucial part of being a responsible landlord, and it shows that you're committed to creating a safe and comfortable environment for your tenants.
Yeah, the Gas Safe Register website has got a ton of information specifically for landlords, both new and experienced.
Oh, yeah.
They've got FAQs, downloadable guides, even a section on finding registered engineers in your area.
It's a fantastic resource.
Yeah.
I always recommend that landlords or anyone who's interested in gas safety just spend some time on their website. Just familiarize yourself with the guidelines and the advice they offer.
Yeah, great advice. So we've covered a lot today, from the basics of gas safety certificates and checks to the importance of communication and tenant awareness. What are some of the key takeaways you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Well, first, gas safety is a shared responsibility. Whether you're a landlord, homeowner, tenant, we all have a role to play in understanding the risks and taking those steps to stay safe.
Right. It's not something to be taken lightly.
Absolutely not.
And secondly, remember there are resources out there to help you.
Yes.
Don't hesitate to reach out to qualified experts, consult reputable websites like the Gas Safe Register, and ask questions. Knowledge is power, and when it comes to gas safety, the more you know, the better equipped you are to keep yourself and everyone around you safe. Wrapping up this deep dive into gas safety, I'm realizing there's a lot to think about. It's more than just checking a box, right? We're talking about understanding the systems, how things work in our homes, and taking those steps to keep everyone safe.
It really is. And it's not always easy to spot potential problems, especially, well, with gas, you can't see it, can't smell it. That's why those regular checks from, qualified engineers, they're so important. They have the training, the tools to detect things that, well, most of us would probably miss.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing that's been on my mind since we started talking about all of this is the issue of those hidden flues.
Right.
It's kind of unsettling to think that something so important for safety could be tucked away, like in a wall or ceiling where you can't even see it.
It really highlights the importance of, proper access for inspections. Remember, we talked about that starting in 2013. Engineers have to classify a boiler as at risk if they can't fully inspect the flue. And a landlord can't just ignore that.
So what happens then? What does a landlord have to do to address that?
They've got to fix it. Usually that means installing those inspection hatches or, making some modifications to give the engineer clear access to the flue.
Ah, I guess.
Think of it like, well, if a doctor needs to examine your heart, they can't do it if there's a wall in the way.
Right. Makes sense.
They need to see what's going on to make sure everything is working as it should be.
It's not just about getting that certificate. You have to actually fix any problems they find.
Exactly. The certificate is just the start. It's an ongoing thing, this commitment to maintenance and being vigilant. It's about creating a safe environment for everyone.
Thinking back on all the information we looked at today, what stands out to you? Anything particularly important or maybe even surprising?
What really strikes me is, well, the focus on those records.
Records.
Yeah. It's not enough to just have the checks done. You have to document them really thoroughly. The Gas Safe Register, they have detailed guidance on what should be included in those gas safety records.
Okay.
It might seem like a lot of paperwork, but, well, it's really important.
I can see how that level of detail would be valuable, like a health record, but for your gas appliances.
Precisely. It shows you've been keeping up with things. It can help identify problems early on. Those records, well, they can be a lifesaver. Literally.
So for someone who's maybe feeling overwhelmed by all this, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them to get started on the right foot with gas safety?
Find a good engineer. A reputable gas safe registered engineer.
Yeah.
And schedule that inspection.
Okay, yeah.
They'll be able to answer your specific questions, look at your situation, and guide you through the process. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's what they're there for, to help create a safe environment.
Great advice. And remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to gas safety. Being informed is the first step to protecting yourself and everyone around you. We've learned a lot today, and I hope everyone listening feels ready to tackle this important topic. Well, that's it for this deep dive. We hope you found it useful and informative. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.